I'm Jason Arbacheski. I'm with the Chester County Community Foundation. I'm their Director of Gift Planning. I've been with the organization 3.5 years. Seems a lot longer. I am a county resident over the last 20 years, and I have 17 years of fundraising experience. I first got into fundraising at Paoli Hospital in 2007. I'm really a background public relations guy who got involved in a capital campaign. And so interviewing people for stories was my thing. And I enjoyed learning about donors and their families and why they support the cause. And a few years later, they said, you know what, you're so great at what you do with the folks you meet. Here's a list. Go get them. And that's basically how I got into fundraising. A lot of people will say that to you. They'll say like, oh my gosh, how did you get into fundraising? Well, I'm actually like a scientist or a researcher. And you're like, wow, I can't believe you're in fundraising. So for me, I've been blessed with a career at a few places in Chester County with my fundraising, and it's been awesome. It's been a great experience. So I want to provide to you today some of the experiences I've learned and had over time, and with the hope of you as board members, as ambassadors of your organization, to bring that back to your CEO and your development fundraising person to share some ideas and some best practices on engaging donors, all right? So I want to talk to you about how to talk to donors, but really your role as board members in this whole fundraising experience for your organizations. If you have questions, raise your hand, shout them out, that's okay, share with the group. We're going to go through these slides, and I really do hope you find it beneficial. So today, we're going to talk about a few things. Here's the agenda. You may have seen it in your book already, but we talk about the keys to major and planned gifts. Board roles. As you're working with your organizations, what's your role as the ambassador to steward your donors and prospects? We'll talk about that. The fourth is very important. It's the conversations. A lot of people don't feel comfortable with talking to donors about fundraising and whatnot. But I'm going to really make it so you can feel comfortable. It's not transactional, it's relational. Building relationships with people, being where they are, and establishing trust is the first and foremost thing. I'm going to give you some talking points that you can take away and you can use. Maybe use it on a test with a donor or a prospect, or maybe a fellow board member. And a few things on keys to success with fundraising. So what I want to do is, I always start with this slide. This is the third year I've done this session. I always talk about the state of giving in America. Giving USA is a national outfit that reports on the state of American philanthropy from the previous year, okay, 2023. And so you'll see here on the screen that, not too shabby. $557 billion was raised last year by Americans. Overall, we are just a great, generous society. We care about each other. We give back to nonprofits that matter most to us. It's part of our fabric as America as we approach our 250th anniversary of our country. So what I'd like to share with you, though, is some bad news, unfortunately. So you'll see here that, $557 billion, pretty good, right? But actually, I have 3 words for you. I think we all know this. Inflation, inflation, inflation. So you may see $557 billion, but God bless you. But actually, giving went down by 2.1% because of inflationary standards. Inflation, to give you an example, is ebbing. So inflation was 8% in 2022 overall. And in 2023, inflation was about 4.1%. So you can see that we're slowly coming out of this inflationary period that we were in and coming into some clearer skies, just like outside. The share of overall giving came from individuals. You'll see that right there, 67%. There's some concerns here. In 2013, so 11 years ago, giving from individuals was actually 73%. So as you see this study every year released, and I have, being in this industry now, it's slowly coming down. And there's some reasons for that. The main reason is donors at nonprofits, major donors, are always being asked to support the cause. A major gift, a major donor, major gift is defined how your organization defines it, but really if it would be $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, whatever that threshold is as a major gift, meaning a major commitment to the organization. Those donors are being asked over and over again. So the next level of engagement of donors, so those are the mid-level donors, gifts of $100 to $500, people who are donating that amount, those folks are not being engaged. They're not being stewarded. So think of it as a pipeline. So you have major donors who are giving to your organization, they're giving a lot of money, they love you, they're making several-year commitments with six-figure gifts, hopefully. But the next level is what I mean. The folks who are sort of just below your nose, you want to get to know them. How do you do that? So that's basically the indicator there. And all points and all trends say that 67% is where donations come from individuals, and it's slowly declining. Yeah.
Could you tell me the year again that it was 73%?
2023. It's kind of hard to get your brain wrapped around that, but it's the year before. This is the report on American giving in 2023. Yes, good question. And so where did the charitable dollars go? We see religious organizations, human services, education. That's sort of really what we see every year when we see this report. The religious organizations may look great. Giving's up, there's an arrow next to it. But actually, if you look at it from a generational standpoint, a lot of younger generations, Gen Zs, millennials, the trend is supporting religious organizations is going down. So that's a cause for concern for religious organizations.
I was going to ask you in general, that 67%, isn't that based on that too? That the younger generations don't have the same sense of...
Yeah, it's that, and it's also the economic flux that we were in that year, but the generational trends is completely different. The Gen Zs and millennials are thinking differently. They support causes that are different than, say, the silent generation or baby boomer generation, and it's definitely present. So I wanted to share that with you because I encourage you to steward your donors that are in this mid-level giving range, $100 to $500 if you know them. If your development staff member is providing you a name and phone number of that donor, so you can call them and just say, hey, I'm a volunteer board member at XYZ organization. Just thank you. Thank you for your gift. That is the open door to start cultivating these donors because that's your next level of donors for your future. It's not all doom and gloom. I think then several months into this new fiscal year started in July 1, so we're in fiscal 25, in my view. Some of you, it might be different. Donor counts are increasing, right? And we've got a lot of gifts that are coming in to nonprofits. So those are some of the studies that I'm seeing out there, national studies. Hopefully your organizations are having that too, where you're getting more donations come. People are feeling a little bit better about the economy and feeling more confident about your organization. Some organizations are really doing to really engage donors. Here's a trend for you to know, is that there's giving circles. I don't mean like an outside giving circle that's doing, fundraising and awarding grants. I mean a giving circle for your organization. Maybe an annual giving, maybe people who are donating annually to your organization. You have a little group. Maybe sort of white gloving this group for something else, giving them information about your nonprofit. That's something that's a trend as well. So that's a way to engage donors and encourage more growth. And another thing, another trend, we touched upon this in the other session, was that monthly donors. These are the folks that are giving you $100 every month through credit card or other means. Those folks are ripe for engagement also. Sometimes we call them GEMs, industry standard, give every month. Those folks are ripe for maybe a larger gift over time or a planned gift later, and I'll get into that. So sharing with you some of the trends.
Quick question, I see political giving up there. How is that impacted?
Good point. That was going to be my segue because I wanted to get these slides right, especially with this one, because this is a biggie this year. It's an election year. Right? So there might be some angst with some of your donors and supporters. We're 1 month out from the election. People may hold back or maybe give to their chosen candidate. I think you see nonprofits actually kind of saying that there is some donor angst. So it's very important for your organizations to cultivate and engage these donors even more. That's very important. So it'll pass. We'll get through the election together like we always do. And then we'll move on, celebrate America's birthday, 250th coming up. So I would say, yeah, there's some angst about it. And I think people support their chosen candidate.
I'm just noticing it's not even a category up here. It doesn't.
No, it doesn't fall underneath that. Yeah, this is basically nonprofit, so gifts going to nonprofit organizations, 501c3 organizations. Yep. So here we go. So this is one of my favorite slides of this presentation, and it is opening the door. You as board members are door openers. You basically go in the community and you represent your organization. Right? Go out to the grocery store, you're seeing some folks, take your kids or your family to different sporting events. You represent the organization all the time because you are a board member, an ambassador. So when you're out there, these are some of the levels that you can talk to, or you can kind of experience with donors. When they donate to your organization, there's varying levels of people who want to support your organizations. So I'll give you an example. So level 1, the organization or the donor sees your mission on social media or online or something in the newspaper or some other media outlet. They're inclined to give to you because, wow, they like your mission so much, I'm going to give them a gift, right? So that's an opportunity to cultivate these donors over time. That's one level. Some folks will get a letter in the mail. So they'll get a letter in the mail from your organization or a newsletter asking for support. And the donor will give a gift to that appeal. Or if you have a fundraising event, you invite folks to come to your fundraising event, like a bowling event or beef and beer, whatever you do, people come and they give to the event as well. So that's another way of people getting engaged with you. So remember, this is a cycle. So people can come in at any level here. They could come in because they give a gift and they see you on social media. They get a newsletter or a friend gives the newsletter to them. They give to you. Level 3 is where this is the sort of the engagement level of your donors. Level 3 is where it really, the engagement of the donor crystallizes, meaning they're giving to your organization annually, and they want to do some volunteer work. That's when you know your organization's hooked them to be an annual donor, and potentially more as a major donor. Again, major donors are people who give gifts of however you qualify that, $5,000, $10,000, $100,000 for some organizations. But the real thing here is to get to level 5. It's a planned gift to your organization. And they are easy gifts. They are bequests and wills. They are gifts of maybe someone wants to give you their second home as a planned gift, or include your organization a retirement plan. Those are planned gifts, and they're easy. I like to demystify planned gifts because that was sort of my background before I came to the Community Foundation, is asking for planned gifts. So what you see here is sort of a philanthropic learning curve, where somebody comes to your organization. They come in different points, different levels, and that's their engagement with your organization, with the real goal of getting to 5, which is a planned gift, a commitment to honor their legacy. Okay? Anyone have any questions about that one? I know that's pretty deep. Okay, good. So here are some keys to raise major and planned gifts. To raise levels of resources, nonprofits that focus on major and planned gifts, you must focus on your fundraising event, right? You have an annual fundraiser, staff are sort of focused on that. They're committing their time to make this annual fundraiser a success, but you must diversify your development program. And what I mean by that is you have to engage your donors. You have to engage the folks who are giving you monetary gifts. So annual gifts, major gifts, and planned gifts are ways to do that. They require low-key, long-term care and tending. Basically, these major gifts and planned gifts through a development plan can be, really easy to ask for once you have a development plan going. They require face-to-face cultivation and solicitation. There are several levels of the fundraising process. There's cultivation, solicitation, and stewardship. Okay, those are the 3 levels of fundraising. So what you want to do is cultivate someone first, and then when it's right, when it's organic and we've established trust, you solicit them for a gift. And hopefully it's a major gift for your organization. Board members and volunteers are key intermediaries to reach and engage your donors. You guys know this. You're board members. You are the cheerleaders, ambassadors of your organization. So you are key to this fundraising success. Major gifts are raised by peer-level solicitors, meaning that if you're, asked by the organization to go and solicit a gift to the person in the community, that you're ready and you have the keys to do that. The authenticity of the relationship is crucial. I say this is all the things I always say is it's relational, it's not transactional. Establish trust and establish a good relationship with the person first before asking them for a gift. Very, very key. So, here's a good one too. Why do some nonprofits never get around to planned giving? It's because the development person, there's just one person wearing many hats. They have to report to the CEO, the board, they have to do grant writing, they have to do social media. Planned giving, fundraising people they wear many hats, right? They're wearing many hats every day if you're in a small to mid-sized nonprofit. Some nonprofits that are larger have the benefit of having a planned giving person, a major gifts person, or an annual gifts person. But the majority of the time, nonprofits say to me, it is so hard to focus on planned giving. What do I do? And the answer is, because I've been there. I've been in a small nonprofit fundraising shop. I worked at Community Volunteers in Medicine for 5 years, and then previous to that, I was at Mainline Health doing fundraising for, 11 years. So I saw the big nonprofit, and then I saw the small nonprofit. Commit 10 minutes. That's all you got to do. Talk to your development person at your organization and say, what are we doing for planned giving? And if they look at you and freak out, that means they're not doing anything, but focus on it because these are large gifts. These are gifts of gifts of real estate, retirement plan, a bequest and a will. It is not about death. It's not about death. It is about legacy. So these planned gifts, once they come into your organization, they are huge and they can really benefit your organization. So it's incredibly personal to have a relationship with a prospect or a donor. Make sure that like I said, the relationship is organic and not transactional. Planned gifts especially, they have a long lead time. You can talk to somebody about a planned gift, but it'll take probably about 3 to 20 years. We're all living longer, so, and again, it's not about death, it is about legacy. So it's understanding the person's love of your organization and what motivates them, okay? So that's basically why a lot of nonprofits don't get around to planned giving. And some people get a little freaked out because they see the alphabet soup, charitable gift annuities, charitable lead trusts. You don't have to focus on those types of planned gifts. To start, focus on talking to someone about leaving the organization a bequest in their will, right? If it's just really organic, having a conversation. And when you ask that question, sit back and let them talk, right? And I'll give you some talking points to help you do that. But just let them talk. And again, it's about leaving a lasting legacy with a planned gift. People give to people. I think that's pretty obvious here, in terms of who's on your board, who's working as CEO of your organization. There's a network that your nonprofits establish, right? People give to causes they believe in. I was talking to several other people earlier today that, it's really about what motivates them with the mission, and that's why they're connected with your organization. the last thing here is most major and plan givers tend to look closely at organizational leadership and outcomes. I had a donor who said to me after a tour at CVIM, they walked past the finance director's office and said, "Oh, can we look at your audit and your 990?" And I'm like, "Sure, yeah, we'll just get that." So these folks are looking at your 990s and your audit. Make sure they're available on your website. There's no harm on actually sharing that information to the community or your donors. So people pay attention to that stuff. And they pay attention to the leader who's at your organization too. So this is something that I go and I talk to nonprofits about all the time. There are several roles that I'd like to share with you in terms of your role as a board member at your respective organization. First of all, it's very important to be a donor. If you're not donating to your organization as a board member, got nothing. You got to walk the talk, right? I challenge you in this way, because I bolded here, make your own stretch gift, right? So you give, every year to the organization, but why not make a stretch gift? A stretch gift is basically giving a little bit more than you would. Or how about a pledge? How about as a board member, you pledge 2 to 3 years, I will give this organization X. Or how about you pledge a planned gift? How about you tell the organization, I'm going to include it in my estate plan. I really love this place so much. So I challenge you to think about supporting your organization. You don't have to start a stretch gift now, but give, because your role as an ambassador, it's very important. If you're talking to folks out in the community, it's an excellent way to bridge the conversation and say, I support this organization financially. Number 2, be an ambassador. And last year I forgot, and I want to make sure I got this. Be an ambassador. Naturally talk about your nonprofit in the community. I mentioned at home, at work, at the grocery store, at the sports field, wherever. But here's something. You may do this already, but may not. It's an old school trick, but it actually works. If you're out in the community at chamber events across this wide Chester County that we live in, this is a little cheat sheet, a little card. So you could, as a board member, have these developed, little tent card. But basically, it has a little information about what your organization is. This is the community foundations. I'll pass them around so you have them. So if you need a little couple talking points, you can use that for yourself, but then you could hand it to the person you're talking to and say, hey, do you want some more information? Here's a little card about what we do. And so that will go with the person, and they'll have it with them, either in their pocket, at home, or at work. That's an excellent way to continue to be an ambassador. It's a small way, but it's a very effective way. We use that at the Chester County Community Foundation. So a lot of our board members are out and about throughout the county at different chamber events as well. So talking about it is very important, okay? Number 3, be a sleuth. The sleuth is very important. You actively find out when talking with others about networks, who's connected to who's at the chamber who you see a lot of times. There is a huge network in Chester County. I first started learning about it when I first started in fundraising 17 years ago, was that it's almost like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon game. Everyone's connected to somebody. They may know it or not, but it is amazing how well connected we are in Chester County. So for you to be a sleuth, pay attention to that. Be active. And of course, you can be quiet about it, but you explore through third-party means prospects that may be good for your organization. And I mean prospects meaning like people who could be potential donors to your organization, all right? I may be talking fundraising talk here, and I do apologize. But that's what I mean by prospects, respectfully. Here are some ways you can be a good sleuth. Know what kinds of people your nonprofit aims to develop partnerships with. You guys do this already. You could test if someone's given to philanthropy by recounting a personal fulfilling experience. Maybe you can get some more information from them when you're talking with them to see if they might be a good fit for your organization as a donor, maybe as a potential fellow board member. Tell them that you want their business card or information and send you some information. Maybe write a little handwritten note on that mailing or on that newsletter Add them to the nonprofit's mailing list. I'm sure you guys do that already, but that's a nice way. I think board members it's sort of required to be a sleuth when you're out there in the community. You know, here's another one. You know, you could look for leads in social media. I do this a lot. I people watch on social media. I pay attention to which organizations matter to my line of work. And a lot of times those organizations are putting photos at different events on their web or their Facebook pages. So I'm able to see who's hanging out with who. And it's when you have your sleuth hat on, and I'm a sleuth too, that really works because then you can kind of connect the dots. So yeah, being a sleuth is critical to develop partnerships that will end in a fundraising or a type of gift in the future for your organization. So I encourage you to continue to be a sleuth. Be a cultivator. You know, here's some things. You can cultivate someone who is, you know, sort of someone in your sleuthing, and you find someone, you connect with them, and you go out and have a coffee or you have breakfast or lunch or dinner, whatever your thing is, cultivate them. Because if you're telling your CEO, your executive director of your nonprofit, I really think this person's going to be a great supporter of ours, cultivate them. You know, there's ways you can do that. Basically, you know, just going and establishing a relationship with them. And, you know, you could also do some coaching sessions, you know, include how to communicate about major and planned gifts. You could actually do that with other board members. And I'm kind of like jumping here because I see the time. You could be a solicitor. Number 5, how comfortable is everyone with actively asking for a gift? Show of hands, come on. We're all friends. Okay, good, all right. Some folks are comfortable with that, some folks aren't. It really depends. Practice helps. And again, there's some talking points that you could use. Practice helps, meaning why not role play with another board member and go out and maybe meet with them, and for a good hour, just pretend you're a donor or vice versa and just have a conversation. That's kind of like how I got into fundraising and asking people for money, for gifts. It's just practicing. I know this sounds weird, but you can even practice in the mirror too. I know that's weird, but a lot of like reporters, news anchors do that as well. It's one way to kind of get over the psychology, the block where you're imposter syndrome, where you're sort of saying, I can't do it, I can't ask for money. You can. And once you do, you're going to be freed, honestly.
One other tool you might do, I've recruited and developed financial advisors, so you can't be afraid of asking for money in that role for about 30 plus years, is to record yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And then play it back, hearing yourself do that. That's
Yeah.
another way.
Yeah. So it's getting yourself comfortable with being a solicitor. And for those who are uncomfortable, I encourage you to just try. Try to think about ways that you can bridge that imposter syndrome, because I had it too at one point.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
What can we do as board members to help our other board members who, out loud, I want to say why are you on the board, but I don't do that. But you know, I feel funny. I don't want to ask, you know, people for money. And I went, you know, so.
Well, there's other ways. I think we talked about in some of the sessions. If that's not their thing, then maybe I would just have the conversation with you too. Is maybe bringing forward another thing that they can do for the nonprofit, like maybe bringing 1 or 2 friends to the organization, or you know, if there's a workplace or if there's a network that they see as the nonprofit can get to, maybe bringing forward a network or friends, bringing them to an organization. There's probably more, but I know the challenge we talked about with you was donor acquisition. How do we get new donors to our organization? I'm going to tell you, it is hard. It's not easy. Yeah.
I was just going to add maybe another suggestion is to have them join you in a conversation with the donor, whether it be on the phone or, you know, if you are getting a cup of coffee or something like that. Sometimes just seeing it in action also can help people say, okay, I could have that kind of conversation, or, you know, you're even encouraging them to participate, you know, and by the end of the conversation, helping them feel a part
I like that. I like it. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think it's a comfort thing, and like
Yeah.
you said, practice with them. And I was thinking, okay, we'll go out for coffee, and we'll just chat it up over, like we'll go back and forth. But anyway, I think that's,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, even if you can share with them an experience where you first asked a donor for a gift, that could kind of help them get over that, kind of feeling that they can't. It's another way. So, good. Excellent. Number 6 is very important. I like to say this. You are stewards. You are stewards. You are stewarding donors. This is the third level of fundraising, is stewarding donors to make sure they feel included. Stewarding means engaging them. They give a gift to your organization. You can't just not bother with them. You got to find ways to engage them. So maybe it is picking up the phone and calling them and saying thank you as a board member, but then, making sure the organization you represent is following up with letters and annual reports and ways to engage that person so they renew their gift to your organization. So being a steward of your nonprofit is very important in the fundraising. So this is a really great one too. I like this, and you're going to make the connection here. So think about maybe some donors or supporters of your organization right now. Think about their faces. Think about who they are. Maybe you've met some donors at your nonprofit's events. Where do you think, after meeting them, where they fall in these next 7 faces? All right? I'm going to go through them, but perhaps you as well are one of these faces, or multiple. So I'll jump right all over here. I mean, the devout, I know this from personal experience. There are people who give because it is God's will. And they thank the Almighty for the means they have to donate to the nonprofit to help the less fortunate. That is so true with some of the folks I work with. I also work with the investor. Some of the corporate leaders in Chester County who think doing good is good business, right? You see that gentleman there on the far left. You know who that is. So that's an example. Then the communitarian. I think I deal with a lot of communitarians who feel like doing good makes a lot of sense in our community. Chester County is full of all the 7, but I think communitarians are like the majority in our county. We just live in such a great, generous county, and it just gives me goosebumps. But I think a lot of them are communitarians. Next few here, the socialites. Somebody mentioned it earlier in the plenary is, drinking good wine is something that they like to enjoy as a board member. I do too. But having fun, going to events, mingling. By the way, if you're a board member and you're at your nonprofit's event, we always like to say, don't huddle together as board members. Stay separated. Get out there and break that comfort level and go and meet people, shake hands, ask their names. Don't hang out with your fellow board members at those events because it doesn't work. So some people are donors or socialites. They just love being involved with your mission and get it. Mr. Branson there, the repayer. I'm very successful, but I want to give back in some way. That's actually true, doing good in return. The altruist, doing good feels right. I think that kind of goes to the communitarian level. Doing good makes sense, but doing good feels right. And then, of course, we can't forget about them, is the dynast. The dynast is basically doing good as a family tradition. There are philanthropists in Chester County who are dynasts that believe that encouraging the next generation to give back philanthropically, it's part of their culture and their family dynamic. So, anyone want to comment in terms of who you are on one of these 7 faces? Are you one or are you several? Anybody want to give it a go? I'll go. I give because it's devout, so I'm a devout giver, and I'm also an altruist as well. So I feel like me as a personal giving back, I'm those 2. Anybody else? Yeah.
I'd say I'm a repayer.
Nice.
Not at his level, but
I was going to mention that too.
If you
Yeah,
were,
good
we
point.
would all be conditioned.
Yeah. You want to sponsor this event, by the way? Anybody else? Okay, well, think about that as you work with your donors and your prospects. What kind of faces are they? because that will help you cultivate them over time. So make sure you pay attention to who they are, their psychological profiles. Cultivating conversations. What I do, why I do. So in terms of family, helping them understand why they give to your organization. Is it because of family? Is it because that they have little ones and they want to show that they're giving back and institute that over time as the little ones get older? Is it faith? We talked about that just before. Giving due to spiritual beliefs and religious practice. Some people, I said, do that and shared that with me. Legacy, giving to influence the future and to be remembered. There's that word again, legacy, planned giving. Someone giving you, your organization, a bequest in their will once they pass on or their spouse passes on. That's legacy. Experience. Inspiration comes from an individual's own life. Someone may have been involved in a certain situation in their life or family member, and your nonprofit mission ties to that. Analysis. Donors' objectivity. Identify areas of greatest need and development of method to accomplish your goals. Just analyze the donor or the prospect to understand, how to bring out their giving a little bit more. Why? These are the basically why questions that you can use. Is it family? Is it faith? Is it legacy? Is it experience? Is it something else that's not on this slide? In fundraising, it can be transactional, but I implore you to just make sure that you are being relational with people. You don't want to turn them off, but you also want to ask some really great relational questions. Like, just start and say, where were you raised? What are your values? You'll get to the point with your relationship with the donor, if you intersect with them, to have some really great conversations. And by the way, once you ask some of these questions to the donor or the prospect, report back to your CEO and your development person so they can take that institutional knowledge, place it in their database or however they record meetings like this. Very important in the fundraising process. So these are some key questions to get to know the prospect or the donor. You guys probably do this already, but they're good questions to just kind of bridge and just have a frank conversation. Before you ask, basically for a gift, clarify the case for donating a major and planned gift. And what does that mean? I think this is sort of like fundraiser speak, but basically, what's the need to be met? Make sure the donor understands that there's a clear understanding of what the donor is being asked to support. For example, if you're meeting with the development person and the donor or the prospect, make sure you have some materials for the donor, like a case for support or a charitable priorities sheet that sort of hones in on what your priorities are for the nonprofit so you could give to the donor. So make sure that they have a clear understanding of what the donor is being asked for support and why. The case for support is really the why, making sure that there's articulation of what you're going to ask them for. How is our nonprofit going to meet the need? So basically, you've given them the case for support, you've talked to them about the case. How is your nonprofit going to meet that need? So make sure you make solid plan for your meeting goals. You can prepare ahead of time with the development person and say, okay, whoever, let's do a prep meeting before our donor meeting to make sure we have all the right questions ready to ask this person. You can do that too. That's a nice little tactic. Who else is going to be involved? What do you need from me, the donor? What's in it for me, the donor? How will we know when we've accomplished what we aim to do? Make sure in your prep meeting with the donor or your CEO that these questions are sort of answered ahead of time. So when you talk to the donor, you can get them kind of understanding what's next. Cultivation meetings. These are pretty cool. I mean, you can have cultivation meetings, and I mentioned earlier your role as a cultivator. These are some tricks where you can have a meeting and sum up your nonprofit's mission. You can ask the prospect what their interests are. This slide's sort of like a recap over the last few slides. Provide your own personal experience about why you're on the board of the nonprofit, of your nonprofit. Ask the person who you're meeting with to recount a similar feeling that you've had with engaging the nonprofit. Why don't you summarize 3 recent accomplishments and 3 key assets that you can provide about your nonprofit to this person you're meeting or family. 3 recent accomplishments and 3 key assets. You can even have those in your back pocket, in your mind, when you're out there in the community and talking about your nonprofit. And the last one is really kind of really deepening the relationship with the donor and with the nonprofit. So those are some keys there that you can use. So the art of the ask, make sure it's donor-centric. We keep talking about a culture of philanthropy, and we really have to be donor-centric when it comes to the need of a person who's going to give to your organization. Here's some things that you can think about ahead of time before your meeting. Time. What's the best time that the person's available to be asked for a gift? Is it now or is it later? This may come naturally in the conversation, but make sure you have it in the back of your mind when you're talking to somebody. They may not be ready to talk about a gift to your organization. So always focus first and foremost on timing of the gift. Secondly is place. Where will your conversation take place? At a restaurant, make sure it's a quiet spot at the restaurant. Arrive 10 to 15 minutes early. This is something that I've learned over time. You don't want to get there at exactly the time that, that your meeting is. You want to be there before the donor arrives or the prospect arrives so you can greet them. Wait for them at the door or get a table ahead of time and wait for them at the door. There's a little bit of a science to it. But again, you're welcoming them and establishing trust. All right, so where will your conversations take place? Or it could be at their home. They may invite you to their home, and it could be a situation where you're now, everyone's comfortable and you have a good open opportunity to talk about your nonprofit. Who from your team will be the best to go on this meeting with the donor? Is it you? Is it the development person? Or is it you and the CEO? That really will be decided internally. I've seen it all over the place. Sometimes the CEO has a good relationship with the major donors, and that's kind of standard. So, they're the CEO or executive director is the one that's sort of like meeting with these major donors, and the nonprofit development person sort of got the annual giving donors. Depends. But really talk ahead of time in terms of who's going to the meeting. Case, lead prospects, their own interests and values, understanding and listening to them. It's not about you. I always say that to myself. It's not about me. I go in those meetings and I have a deep conversation and I listen and I really make sure I really remember that conversation so I could bring it back and then decide on the next step with that person. Ask. This is really the donor-centric portion of this presentation is really, would you consider a lead gift to our cause? Now, that's a question that's sort of boilerplate, but I would say, would you consider supporting our organization this year? Be quiet. Don't say a word. And they're either going to say yes, no, or maybe. If it's no, that's okay. You can always go back. But don't be afraid to hear yes, no, maybe, or not yet. I'm forgetting not yet. That's an open door there. So make sure you're ready for their answer.
Is that like the quote you would suggest, or would you suggest be more specific with like a dollar amount for
I wouldn't do
campaign?
I wouldn't do dollar amount. I would talk about your organization, and then I would say, we really could use some help. Would you consider supporting our organization? But if they know ahead of time that you're meeting with them to talk about a capital campaign, then you can get a little more specific. Like, for this campaign, we were asking you to contribute $50,000 or $100,000 to support our campaign, and then get into selling it, the campaign itself. This is the reason why we want you to support it with such a high-level gift, a meaningful gift. Really start using the words. It's really, somebody told me this. He said, it's like Jason, a mentor told me, it's like talking to your mom or dad. It's like making sure you're respectful in that conversation. And again, not being transactional, but just literally leveling with them, talking to mom and dad or like a best friend. You know, that's really kind of like the mindset I have when I talk to folks. And I listen. So, yeah.
And if they say no, would you then say, tell me more?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have a right to say, thank you for letting me know that. May I ask why you feel that way? Someone might say, well, I have a lot of commitments right now, not a good time. You know, there could be a menagerie of responses there with no, but at least you have a right to actually ask, you know, why? May I ask why? May I? Yes.
No, not now. Okay.
I think about that one movie. I forget the name. It just popped in my head. I'll think of it. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I apologize, I had to leave, and maybe you've already covered this.
Yes.
But in doing your research to make the big ask, do you have any recommended software or databases to go to be able to see the history of the donor and be able to know a little bit of their background,
Question.
their giving characteristics?
Good question. Yeah, I've seen a lot of donor databases over my career. One that's like the Cadillac product all the way down to the one that's really centered for your mission. I don't like to recommend any in particular, but it's really got to be the right fit for your organization. You can't have a Cadillac product and be like, you're not using its full benefit. I've used Razor's Edge, Blackbaud, and I've also used Donor Perfect. And I found personally, and I'm probably going to endorse this, Donor Perfect to be a little bit easier to use.
You used that before.
Yeah. So it really depends on your nonprofit and how you're collecting this information. So these are some things that I hope you can take away today, especially this slide. This is pretty important for you, to just listen to the donor and understand their response. No, maybe, yes, not yet, and really kind of addressing ahead of time, okay, Jason, if they were to say no, then how would what is going to be our response? Or if they say maybe, what is going to be our response? It's having that prep meeting ahead of time. It's very important for you, okay? Let's make sure, oh good, okay. All right, so keys to successful major and planned giving. These are really two major ones, but it's compelling purpose, strong moving case for support. Again, that's that little sheet or a little like booklet. It could be just easily done in-house with some photos and just some information as to what you're asking the donor for. It's a little thing that they can take away and review after your meeting. Okay, if they say maybe, they could take that with them. Establish some specific goals, clear understanding of what the donor is being asked to support. I think that goes without saying that you have to kind of make sure the donor understands what you're asking them to do. So articulate it in the conversation early on, or before you meet. They're going to know why you're meeting with them. They're pretty smart. Solid plan for meeting goals and completing the defined work. Make sure you have a plan. The pre-meeting with you and the CEO or the development person is very key. Get together and say, okay, what's my role? Let's talk about it. How are we going to talk to this donor or prospect? Make sure you provide to the person evidence that this gift is going to be meaningful impact. Make sure that this isn't transactional. Make sure that the gift is meaningful, that it's really going to support your organization. And make the case to that donor or prospect why it's going to be meaningful and impact. Really hit here. I think that's really how you should really approach that conversation. Speak from the heart. And then, of course, the number 2 here is meaningful cultivation and relationship. Really comes from the top. The CEO, strong leadership, the board, staff, and volunteers, creating a culture of philanthropy. That's something that will help you in your fundraising as a board member. Make sure your nonprofit's developing methods to promote engagement and ownership and stewardship. Here's another one, opportunities for recognition. Does the donor require to be recognized for their large gift. A lot of nonprofits have a donor wall sort of on their wall that shows X amount giving level. Is that something that matters to them? Is that maybe the business person who's giving to your organization, if they want their name, their corporate name on a donor wall, is that going to be something that they're interested in? Or are they want to be anonymous? You have to honor their anonymity. People get a little funny with having their names out on donor lists, etc. So make sure you really take the time to understand where their interests are with recognition. Very important. Avenues for involvement and meaningful participation. Again, engaging these folks with your nonprofit. What are some avenues for them to be part of the nonprofit and your mission? So this ends here, but I want to make sure that if there's any questions or anything that's coming to mind, we have some time for it. Anyone have any questions? Okay. Yeah.
It just struck me, you said to put the 990 on the website. I think it's a great idea when somebody walks by your treasurer's office and says, can I look at your 990? Or somebody
That was out of the blue.
that's
I was like,
appropriate. If they're finding it on your website and that's sort of their first exploratory investigation of considering giving, they may not be great consumers of a 990 yet, and I see more potential downsides to doing that.
Okay.
Do you find it's commonly done? Do you find have you seen downsides? I can see people saying, "Wow, those 3 line items really jump out to me. I'm not getting behind this organization."
but yes, I was going to say, some people go to that, and I did have that happen. Same organization, not the same donors, but another donor had said, you guys are doing a pretty good job with your sustaining fund. And I'm like, yes, we are. Yep. But it's a method of transparency.
Sure.
Right? I mean, that's really what you want. So if you want to be promoting yourself as a transparent organization, putting those documents on there. Some leadership may disagree with me, but something to think about. Charity Navigator and GuideStar, if your nonprofits are named as a gold or a silver or whatever color, make sure you're promoting that to your organization or to your donors in your community. Put it on your website, on your homepage. Your acknowledgement letters that the development person does to the donors, they have to be acknowledged within 3 days of their gift. Put it in the footer of the letter. That's what I started doing. And that puts you on the map for transparency. So I'm glad you brought up GuideStar and Charity Navigator. Those are good things to promote and market transparency and accountability for your organization. Yep. Anything else? I hope you guys take away this presentation and think that you're going to the community now and you're not feeling fearful about asking for a gift. Your mindset is this: making sure it's a organic conversation, building trust with someone. Don't be afraid to ask for a gift. Put that aside. Your role is very important as a board member of your nonprofit. So I thank you for your time and what you guys do on a daily basis for your nonprofits. And we're here as a resource at the Community Foundation. So we want to make sure you have our contact information. Reach out at any time if you have something. So thank you very much.